Hey, welcome to Love Always Self. I'm Shyra.
Hey, y'all, I'm Karista, and thanks for joining us today on this episode of Love Always Self. We've got an interesting topic today. Just to forewarn you, this may cause a little trigger reaction in some of us. I think this kind of depends on our mindset about life and whether or not we are a victim or the creator of our reality. So let's buckle in and hop along for this fun ride.
Yeah. So one of the questions, you and I were talking about is, do we create our own suffering?
Mhm,
Um, you
mhm,
know, there's so many times in our everyday experience where, and I know I'm going through this currently where um I'm grappling with self-worth. I'm
mhm,
grappling with what is it that I do for, my career and my job. And how that's impacting me emotionally, which transitions to physically.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and there's so many times that because of this, I'm creating this, and I'm aware of it, right? Like I will bring my awareness to the fact that I'm doing this all the time. But there's so many times where I know that I'm in such a high stressful state that after the end of my time at work, I don't come out of that stressful state. I stay in it.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
And that turns into irritation over the littlest things in my home environment. That turns into lack of wanting to go out and do things. That turns into like a lot of things. But then there's this underlying question of, am I doing this? Am I
mhm,
causing this? Because I'm
mhm,
staying stuck in this mindset.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, and I think the mindset does tell us a lot, right? Like that victim mindset. Sorry if that word is a sensitive one. Thinking ourselves as a victim. With that mindset, then things are happening to us. With the creator mindset, we are recognizing that things are happening for us. It may not be things that we want or that we desire to experience, but somehow in some form it is supporting our soul growth and expansion, and movement back towards love and source as well. Um, what we were talking about a moment ago is, we've had some time over the holidays where we've been able to relax and, not have to think about work. And we were just talking about returning to work and how there is this, resistance to going back to work and almost like dreading that Monday return to work feeling. And I kind of called us out in that moment that we are choosing to suffer by dreading what's going to be happening in the future and not acknowledging that in this moment, in this present moment, this one right here, we are, filled with opportunity to create, and this is every moment, right? Create and align with a different perspective on how things are happening or why things are happening. But in this moment, we can relax. We can, do what we want today. We can, enjoy friends. We can do nothing. We can rest. We can, watch TV. We have time. So when we're pulling ourselves out of this present moment, appreciating what we have in this space right here, and we are focused on what's happened in the past, or worrying about, this is one of my things that I'm working on, worrying about what other people are feeling. Are they upset with me? Are they, feeling lonely or anything else? And I'm sitting here ruminating on, well, that person said that word to me, and I'm worried that I've upset them, or I'm not doing everything that I can to make their best experience occur. Again, recognizing that that is not my responsibility. But I admit that I was ruminating on this yesterday because I was stressed about how somebody else was feeling.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to talk to my dad about this, and he was like, "What? why are you stuck on this? Just let it go. Give it back to that person. It's not yours, to be responsible
And we
for their
talked about that.
experiences. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
We
we
talked
talked
about it on like an episode or two ago, for
yeah.
sure.
Or in the car ride that we just had.
Yeah.
Cuz I cuz
Yeah.
I I want to bring that up. I want to talk about that Carrie and I were out doing some errands for this podcast, and you had brought up some of that information, and we talked about it. And at one point I do recall even saying to you like, "Hey, you know," and I think I gave you like a completely different type of scenario,
Mm-hmm.
and whether or not that scenario, how would you react? And you were
Mm-hmm.
like, "Well, no, that wouldn't make any sense." And I was like, "Well, it's the same thing. It's just in a different
It's flipped.
it's flipped,
Right.
right?"
Right.
Um and so good job, dad. You gave great advice.
Yeah.
And so
Well, I think what you asked me was, is it anybody else's job to make sure that you are not lonely?
right,
And
right.
I said, no, my job to recognize what I have all around me and what I have within me, and know that, with my belief that I'm connected to all things always.
Which is again very similar because you had asked me a question coming when we were heading home. You had asked me a question in the car and you said, "Shyra, if you could have done anything different coming right out of high school
Hmm.
and made a choice," uh, and I think that it really would have kind of entailed knowing what I know now in a
Sure.
way, right?
Yeah.
Um, what would you have done? And I immediately answered you. I was able to immediately identify what it was that I would have done and what path I would have been on currently, at
Hmm.
this age. And what I think now would have brought me a lot more joy.
Hmm.
And I've been sitting with that freaking question for the last 2 days since we had that
Hmm.
conversation. And I'm like, so basically, what I have now discovered is that I'm not stuck in where I'm at. I've never been stuck in where I'm
Yay.
at. Um, it's not too late for me, like, I mean,
Hmm.
I'm in my 40s. I get that, but it's still, that's really young. And I'm not in a position where I can't just make a change if I want to.
Hmm.
So I need to start looking at how do I transition from, you know, this, and I think again, it still goes back to the whole self worth bit, because I think
Hmm.
that there's this like
Absolutely.
idea in my head of like, and again, this is my idea. This is my embedded information that I've been raised to believe that you have to have this kind of a job. You have to do this kind of a thing in order to be successful, in order to appear worthy,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So, in that sense, I am creating my own suffering by staying in those old programs.
Hmm. Absolutely. Not redefining what success is to you
Right,
specifically,
right,
but what it looks like to others.
correct.
Hmm.
Which
Hmm.
means I'm still valuing the opinions of others over my own.
Right. And
Eh,
that is, we're forgetting the self and self worth.
right. See, we do it too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the hardest places for us to accept that we are creating our own suffering is in like events of like socioeconomic uh, challenges, life challenges. It's not necessarily the place in life that is causing the suffering. Not to say that there aren't lots of traumatic things that are connected with that, but it's our mindset. Seeing the silver lining, finding the space of gratitude for what you do have, for recognizing how a struggle can promote self growth, self awareness, appreciation for the other things around you. And I think that when we adjust our perspective, rather than, oh my gosh, this is happening to me all the time. Why is this always happening to me? I don't understand why, I keep attracting all this same stuff. Oh, that,
Mm.
yeah, I'm like, that's a manifestation thing right there. But when we are stuck in this mindset of lack, of not having, of missing out, of we are suffering, we are choosing to focus on what we consider as not right in our life.
Yeah, there's a man, because there's an aspect of this conversation, and I've been debating on whether or not we go down this rabbit hole, but
Mhm,
like, there's an aspect of this conversation that has a lot to do with, well, what about those that are suffering because of physical ailments,
mhm,
health issues, and we've got a lot of that going on right now, right?
absolutely.
You know, there's this from my soul self, right? Like, I heard this conversation on another podcast that I was listening to, where it was the Michael guy, the woohoo guy. Love him, love him. And he was having a conversation with somebody else who is experiencing a lot more into his own unique abilities, right?
Mhm,
Abilities that we all, even though I say the word unique, we all possess, and you know how I stand with
mhm,
that. But
mhm,
one of the things that he had said was, we are a soul first, we are a physical experience second, and those two work together. And so your soul tends to want to come in and have a physical experience to expand its awareness of self,
mhm,
to learn more about self, to bring you back into the higher state with source. And that is my belief as well. So that resonates with me. It might not resonate with all of our listeners, but that does resonate for myself. And so when I heard this, I was thinking of, all the things that you would do if you were coming in, and to just say, like, you roll with this thought process for a second with me, right? All the things that you would want to experience to learn about yourself, right? Think very broad, very, very broad on this. Um, would you want to know what it feels like to go through certain health conditions? Would you want to know what it feels like, what your emotion would be, how things would taste, how your sight would be? Would would you want to experience it where maybe you couldn't see and the only thing you could do is hear and touch? Would you want to also then maybe learn what it feels like to have a kid? Would you want to feel would you want to learn what it feels like to not have the ability to have the kid,
mhm,
right? Like, all of these things that would appear in our current state of being, in our current awareness, it feels like it sucks. It feels like it
mhm.
hurts.
It does.
I'm getting emotional.
I see the tears welling up.
you know, it does. And there's so many things that go on in people's lives that feel terrible. But then you think about, in my experience, in my personal growth, it's beautiful at the same time
Mhm,
because I'm learning. I'm learning all the things about me that makes me me
mhm,
in a much larger picture
mhm.
than just this physical experience. It's sorry.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give the impression that we don't believe that people are victimized, because that does happen. And not to say that we will always find and know that there is something good that comes from something, but it is meant for your highest and greatest good in some way, your soul is needing to go through this experience. Maybe on the other side of things, it's because you will be able to help others and support others and be there for them.
Yeah.
In the middle of that shitty event, it sucks. And I'm sorry for anybody that has to or has had to go through any experiences that have hurt and have caused pain.
Yeah. Me too.
I
Me
do
too.
think, I thought about a group of people earlier when we were talking, and I didn't share this with you yet. Those groups of people around the world in like third world countries who don't have a lot.
Yeah.
But you see them filled with joy.
Mm-hmm.
They find joy in the life that they are surrounded by, in what they do have. And they're not focused as much on what they don't have as maybe people that are in the first world countries,
Yeah.
because they have everything that they need to survive. And so there's room to think about all the things that we are lacking materialistically, mostly. Not saying that's all of it, but that's a large part of our culture is materialism. And if people that struggle to know where their next meal or their drink of water will come from, if they can find joy and experience true happiness, we have that choice also.
Yeah.
We have the choice to stay in the mindset of lack, of not having, of feeling like things are happening to us. And we, if that's where you want to stay right now, that's okay too. If you're not ready to take your power back, that's okay too. But that's exactly what this mindset transition is. It's a way to take back our power and recognize that we don't have to choose to stay in that negative space. We don't have to continue to focus on what we're missing, because the law of attraction, sorry, it's going to bring more to you of that.
Yeah.
Which is, again, why I really want to encourage you. This isn't just fluff. I do want you, I would love everybody to experience love and joy and happiness. I know I can't make that happen. That's not my responsibility for you. But I hope that you feel motivated to start practicing this shift in perspective, this shift in mindset.
Yeah. It's very, very beneficial. Even if I shed tears of happiness or sadness, it's beneficial to even just have the awareness of the things that you and I are talking about, the things that we bring to our own attention, because it shifts your perspective to a whole new level to be able to see it from a different angle. Kind of like what Leopold, it was Leopold, Leonard, whatever. Yeah. So
don't tell him you said that. No, I'm just kidding.
I know, right? He knows. It's like what he was saying about the bubble and the reflection, right? And having a different perspective from, either side of it. And when you do that, and when you look at it from that angle, from a different angle other than the experience that you're having right then and there. And it's not to say that you weren't meant to have that experience and feel it and learn it, right? But if you don't want to stay there, if you want to come out of that, then that's where this is a beneficial practice to go into. And something I was thinking about while you were talking there is some of the thoughts that I know that I've had where, especially at the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021, for me personally, there were so many times where I was like questioning whether or not I was going to make it out of that. And going through something like that and then having these incredible moments of sharing the experience that I was having with others and watching them learn and appreciate the information that they received because of my experience was one of the most profound things that I've ever gone through. Yeah. And it really did help me shift my perspective of maybe this wasn't just for you. Although it's definitely for you to help with your own personal soul growth and your own personal growth and this physical experience and everything else. And it definitely pushed me and catapulted me, honestly, into like a completely different direction in my life. But at the same time, the amount of people when I shared it, that came to me and started asking, more questions, and they're like, or prompted them to go get checked or whatever, so they could start having a better experience in their own lives or not be in discomfort for their own selves. That was amazing. And it really was a lesson that I needed to learn. And it allowed me to be more enthusiastic about you and I doing what we do now, where we decided that we're going to take even our, amazing intimate personal right experiences, incredible, shitty, whatever, and share that with our audience. Because at the end of the day, when you and I started this, we both said to each other, if we just help one person, that
we've done exactly
what we set out to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
One other little piece of information, just to acknowledge, this is not an easy thing to start practicing.
No.
It's worth it. It's worth the failure that will lead to success. It's not as easy as flipping on a light switch. For some people, maybe so.
Man, I salute you.
Yeah.
you just jump in there and you're like, well, shit, I don't want this no more. Light switch. And then you're completely different. Man.
Yeah.
Good for you.
You are good for you. You are a step above. For the rest of us, it takes practice. It takes first the step of creating awareness that of where your mindset is at, and not give yourself a hard time about it. We don't create awareness to have judgment. We create awareness so that we can accept ourselves because we are worth it.
And release judgment.
And yes, and not just release judgment, but release our grasp on focusing on the negative. The more you practice your alignment with gratitude, with shifting this perspective of, is it happening to me or for me? You are going to create stronger neural connections with that space of positivity, with that space of gratitude, with that space of creating greater awareness than just, right here, this
physical self, right?
Yes. And that will help, but it takes time, it takes practice, it takes consistency, and just know how much you are loved
and
whether or not you
supported.
do this.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, we want to build a community based on that foundation
Mhm.
of awareness and support system and everything in between, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many of these out there,
Mhm.
that you could look up and feel aligned to and feel supported by. Um, it is amazing when you start going down the path of self-discovery and you start asking the questions, what you stumble upon, and what this incredible universe starts to bring into your reality,
Mhm.
and starts to just really start pushing that information towards you for what you need at that exact moment, at that exact time. And that's probably one of the coolest things to play around with. But yeah, you're right. Uh, it doesn't discern between what you feel is good or bad.
Mhm.
It gives you what you want. And if your focus and your
Gives you what you
want,
need. Yeah.
right, is set in certain ways, then yeah, that's what it's going to give you.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
it doesn't have a judgment like we have here. We learn most of our judgments based on this physical
Mhm.
experience, based on whatever
Mhm.
programming we've had, belief systems that we've built and created for ourselves. So the universe isn't looking at it like that. It's looking at, you want this. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me,
Where's
let me,
your focus?
let me bring it to
Wherever
you.
your focus is, the universe is like, "Ha, that's what you want."
Yeah.
So, what do you want?
Then of course your guides step in, or they're like, are you sure?
Yeah.
We're going to keep testing you on this.
Yeah. Doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean it's handed to you on a silver platter. You got to work for it. You got to go through the work, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
Every bit of growth is absolutely worth it. And um, one last thing, this journey is all about love. And I know that sounds really woo. That sounds really fluffy
No.
for some. We preach it all the time. But some of that love, we need to share our experiences so that we are open to receiving that love and support as well. So I know that a lot of us feel maybe shame or guilt or fear of not being accepted and being judged, partly because we're not accepting ourselves and judging ourselves. Um, but once you open up and actually start talking about your experiences, it's going to blow your mind how many people are going through similar, maybe not the same, but similar experiences. And the amount of support that you can provide for each other will just be absolutely beautiful and heartwarming. And it's going to lift you up and it's going to bring you closer to that love.
Oh yeah. 100% agreed. Well said. Yeah. All right.
All righty. So, again, choose your mindset. Where are you at? Do you want to be the creator of this reality? And if so, recognize that things are happening for you, even if you don't want them, even if it's not exactly the way you dreamed, they are happening for you to help you along your soul growth. And don't forget to love first
Love last.
and love always.
Thank you all so much. Have a
Y'all
beautiful
have a
day.
you jinx.
Yeah.
Bye, y'all. Hey, listener, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this moment. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and we look forward to our next connection.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow to stay notified of new content from Love Always Self. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to discuss, please hit us up on any of our social media platforms linked in the show notes below.
I'm Karista.
And I'm Shyra.
And until next time, remember to love first
Love last.
and love always.
Love Always Self podcast is meant for entertainment purposes only. We do not make any warranties about the completeness, reliability, and accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. Any action you choose to take upon the information in this podcast is strictly done so at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of our podcast. Any and all medical concerns should be addressed with a licensed healthcare provider, as well as any questions that may be derived from the information discussed in this podcast.